The crisp mountain air bit at my cheeks, a welcome sting after a grueling 12-hour shift in the ER. My headlamp cut a narrow beam through the inky blackness of the Redwood National Park Trail, the towering trees a silent, ancient audience to my solitary escape. This was my ritual, my therapy, trading the sterile scent of antiseptic and the frantic beeps of monitors for the earthy perfume of pine and damp soil. As an emergency room nurse, I lived in a world of controlled chaos. But out here, under the vast, indifferent sky, I found a peace that no amount of meditation could replicate. Tonight, however, the usual tranquility felt off. A prickle of unease traced its way up my spine, a sensation I usually only got when a code blue was about to drop. The forest was too quiet, the usual nocturnal symphony of crickets and rustling leaves replaced by an unnatural stillness. My hiking boots crunched on fallen leaves, each step echoing louder than it should. I tightened the straps of my backpack, my hand instinctively going to the small, but sturdy, hiking pole clipped to its side. Probably just my imagination, I told myself, a byproduct of too many late nights and too much caffeine. Then I heard it. A low, guttural growl that vibrated through the soles of my boots, followed by a high-pitched whimper. My heart hammered against my ribs. Not a bear, not a coyote. This sound was different, more predatory. I froze, straining my ears, my breath catching in my throat. The whimpering came again, closer this time, laced with terror. It was a child. Adrenaline surged, overriding my fear. Every instinct honed by years in the ER screamed at me to act. I flicked my headlamp to its brightest setting, sweeping the beam through the dense undergrowth. And then I saw them. Massive. That was the first word that came to mind. Not just large, but impossibly so. 3 of them, their coats a mix of obsidian black and mottled gray, their eyes glowing with an eerie, intelligent light in the darkness. They moved with a fluid, silent grace that belied their size, circling a small, huddled figure near the base of a colossal redwood. The figure was tiny, no more than a child, her small body trembling. My mind struggled to process the scene. Wolves? Here. And why were they playing with their prey? It wasn't a hunt, not in the way I understood it. It was something else, something chillingly deliberate. Hey! My voice, surprisingly steady, cut through the tense silence. The wolves' heads snapped up, their glowing eyes fixing on me. For a terrifying moment, they seemed to assess me, not with animalistic fear, but with a calculating intelligence that sent a shiver down my spine. One, a huge black male with eyes like molten gold, let out another low growl, a warning. But the child. She was so small, so vulnerable. I couldn't just stand there. Get away from her. I yelled, taking a step forward, brandishing my hiking pole like a weapon. It felt ridiculously inadequate against creatures of that size, but I had to try. The black wolf took a step towards me, its lips peeling back to reveal an impressive array of fangs. A primal fear, cold and sharp, pierced through me. This wasn't just an animal. This was something else entirely. But then the child let out a desperate sob, and my focus snapped back. Leave her alone. I charged forward, not thinking, just reacting. I swung my hiking pole, aiming for the black wolf's head. It moved with impossible speed, sidestepping my clumsy attack, a low snarl rumbling in its chest. But my sudden, reckless charge had startled them. The other 2 wolves hesitated, their attention momentarily diverted from the child. It was all the opening I needed. I lunged, grabbing the child's small arm. Her skin was cold, clammy. Come on! I hissed, pulling her behind me, shielding her with my body. She was surprisingly light, almost ethereal. The black wolf let out a frustrated roar, a sound that was too human, too enraged for any animal I'd ever encountered. It took another step, its massive paws thudding softly on the forest floor. I braced myself, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. This was it. I was going to be torn apart. But then a sharp, almost imperceptible sound like a whistle cut through the air. The black wolf paused, its golden eyes still locked on me, but a flicker of something else, obedience, crossed its gaze. It let out a frustrated huff, then turned, melting back into the shadows with its companions, disappearing as silently as they had appeared. I stood there, panting, clutching the child, my body trembling with a delayed rush of adrenaline. They were gone, just like that. I knelt, turning the child to face me. She was small, with wide, terrified eyes and a tangle of dark hair. Her clothes were torn, but she seemed otherwise unharmed. Are you okay? I whispered, my voice hoarse. She nodded, her gaze darting nervously towards the spot where the wolves had vanished. Her small hand gripped my shirt, surprisingly strong. And then, in a voice barely above a whisper, but perfectly clear, she said, "Thank you." My eyebrows shot up. Her English was flawless, not what I'd expect from a child lost in the woods. Before I could ask her anything else, before I could even process the strangeness of her articulate gratitude, she pulled away from me with a sudden, surprising strength. She darted into the shadows, a fleeting glimpse of her small form disappearing into the impenetrable darkness of the forest. "Wait!" I called out, scrambling to my feet. But she was gone, just like the wolves. The forest was silent once more, the only sound the frantic thumping of my own heart. I stood there for a long moment, the cold night air seeping into my bones, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Massive, intelligent wolves. A child who spoke perfect English, and then vanished into thin air. It felt like a dream, a vivid, terrifying hallucination brought on by exhaustion. But the lingering scent of pine and something wild, something musky and primal, clung to the air, a tangible reminder that it had been terrifyingly real. I shivered, pulling my jacket tighter. My mundane life, I realized, had just taken a very sharp, very unexpected turn. 3 days. 3 days of trying to convince myself it was a trick of the light, a hallucination, a stress-induced nightmare. 3 days of replaying the impossible scene in my head. The glowing eyes, the intelligent snarls, the child's perfectly articulated thank you before she vanished. I'd even gone back to the trail, searching for any sign, any paw print, anything to ground me in reality. Nothing. The forest had swallowed its secrets whole. I was halfway through my shift, charting notes on a particularly nasty case of appendicitis, when the ER doors swung open with a quiet, almost imperceptible whoosh. The usual cacophony of the emergency room, the distant wail of sirens, the hurried footsteps of nurses, the low murmur of worried families, seemed to dim, as if the very air had thickened. He was tall, impossibly tall, and broad, with shoulders that strained the seams of his expensive charcoal suit. His dark hair, thick and slightly unruly, framed a face that was all sharp angles and raw power. High cheekbones, a strong jaw, and a mouth that looked carved from stone. But it was his eyes that truly arrested me. They were the color of molten gold, piercing and intense, and they swept across the bustling ER with an unnerving calm, as if he were assessing a battlefield. Then they landed on me. A jolt, sharp and electric, shot through me, from the tips of my toes to the roots of my hair. It wasn't just recognition. It was something deeper, something primal and undeniable. My breath hitched. The air crackled, suddenly charged with an invisible energy. It was as if every cell in my body recognized him, resonated with him, in a way that defied logic or reason. My hand flew to my chest, over my pounding heart. He started walking towards me, his gaze never leaving mine. Each step was deliberate, powerful, radiating an aura of controlled strength that made every other person in the room seem to fade into the background. Nurses, doctors, patients, they all became blurry figures, background noise. There was only him. He stopped directly in front of my station, his presence overwhelming, filling my personal space with a scent that was both wild and intoxicating, pine, damp earth, and something else, something musky and uniquely masculine. It was the same scent that had lingered in the air that night in the forest. My blood ran cold. Lyra Thornvale. His voice was a low rumble, deep and resonant like distant thunder. It wasn't a question. It was a statement, a declaration. I swallowed, my throat suddenly dry. "Can I help you?" I managed, my voice a reedy whisper. My professional demeanor was crumbling around me like a sandcastle in a storm. His golden eyes narrowed, a flicker of something unreadable in their depths. "You interfered," he stated, his voice devoid of emotion, yet laced with an undeniable undercurrent of power. "You saved my daughter." My mind reeled. "Daughter? The child? Celine." I breathed, the name escaping my lips before I could stop it. A muscle twitched in his jaw. "Celine Fenmore." He paused, his gaze sweeping over me, a possessive intensity that made my skin prickle. "And because of your interference, you have incurred a life debt." My brow furrowed. "A life debt? What are you talking about?" This was insane. "Pack law," he explained, his voice still calm, but with an edge of steel. "When a human interferes with a pack matter, especially one involving a pup, they become indebted. You saved her life, yes, but you also disrupted a crucial lesson." "A hunt. A hunt." I scoffed, a surge of indignation overriding my fear. She was being chased by wolves. Massive, terrifying wolves. What kind of lesson is that? His lips, thin and unyielding, curved into something that wasn't quite a smile, but held a hint of dark amusement. The kind that teaches survival. The kind that teaches a young wolf to shift, to fight, to embrace her true nature. My eyes widened. Wolf. Shift. My gaze darted to his, then back to his broad shoulders, his powerful frame. The pieces, impossible as they were, began to click into place. The intelligence in their eyes. The way they moved. The scent. You're one of them, aren't you? I whispered, the realization hitting me with the force of a physical blow. A werewolf. He inclined his head, a subtle, almost imperceptible movement that somehow conveyed immense power. I am Silas Fenmore, Alpha of the Northwood Pack.
The scent hit me the moment I stepped into the sterile confines of the human hospital. A unique blend of antiseptic and something else, something sweet and wild, like honeysuckle after a rainstorm. It was her, my mate. My wolf roared, a silent, triumphant sound in my chest. For 3 years, since Elena's death, my world had been a desolate wasteland, my wolf a restless, grieving beast. I had resigned myself to a life without a Celine, a life dedicated solely to Celine, my daughter, and to vengeance. But the fates, it seemed, had other plans. My eyes scanned the room, cutting through the chaos of human activity, until they landed on her. Lyra Thornvale. She was smaller than I'd imagined, but her presence was vibrant, a beacon in the dull human landscape. Her hair, the color of autumn leaves, was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her eyes, a startling shade of green, held a fierce intelligence, even now, as they widened in recognition. The mate bond, a shimmering thread of destiny, snapped into place between us, pulling me towards her with an irresistible force. It was overwhelming, a sudden, all-consuming hunger that made my wolf surge forward, demanding to claim her. My human side, the alpha, fought for control, for decorum, for the necessary conversation that had to take place. I stopped before her, inhaling her scent, letting it fill my lungs, calm the restless beast within. Lyra Thornvale, I stated, my voice deeper than usual, rough with the effort of control. Her response was a reedy whisper, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and something else, something that mirrored the pull I felt. "Can I help you?" "You interfered," I said, cutting straight to the point. There was no time for pleasantries. My pack was waiting, and the rival pack, Marcus's pack, was growing bolder. "You saved my daughter." Her eyes, those captivating green eyes, flickered with confusion, then recognition. "Celine." Celine Fenmore. I watched her, assessing her reaction. She was strong, I could feel it. A fire burned beneath her human fragility. "And because of your interference, you have incurred a life debt." She scoffed, a surprising display of defiance. "A life debt? What are you talking about?" "Pack law," I explained, my voice firm, leaving no room for argument. "When a human interferes with a pack matter, especially one involving a pup, they become indebted. You saved her life, yes, but you also disrupted a crucial lesson. A hunt. A hunt." Her indignation was palpable. She was being chased by wolves. Massive, terrifying wolves. What kind of lesson is that? A flicker of amusement, dark and fleeting, touched my lips. She had courage, this human. The kind that teaches survival. The kind that teaches a young wolf to shift, to fight, to embrace her true nature. Her eyes widened further, the realization dawning. "Wolf? Shift? You're one of them, aren't you? A werewolf." I inclined my head. There was no point in denying it. The bond was too strong, too undeniable. "I am Silas Fenmore, Alpha of the Northwood Pack." Her gaze dropped to my hand, then back to my eyes, a silent question. My wolf stirred, possessive, demanding. She was mine. The fates had decreed it. But there was the matter of the debt. And the pack. And Celine. "Celine is my daughter," I continued, my voice hardening. "And she is my responsibility. You intervened in a pack matter, Lyra Thornvale. According to ancient law, you now owe me. You owe the pack." Her jaw tightened. "Owe you what?" "A life for a life," I stated, my voice low, resonating with the power of my alpha command. "You saved Celine. Now, you will become her mother. You will become my mate. Or you will face the consequences of pack justice for your interference." Her eyes flared, a mixture of shock and outrage. "You can't be serious. You're giving me an ultimatum? Marry you or what? You'll kill me?" "No," I said, my voice calm, though my wolf was snarling at the thought of harming her. "Not kill you. But pack justice is swift and absolute. You would be exiled, hunted, your life as you know it, gone. And Celine needs a mother. She needs you." I watched her, seeing the conflict warring in her eyes. The fear, the anger, but also the undeniable pull of the mate bond, a silent hum between us that only we could feel. It was a gamble, a dangerous play, but I had no choice. My wolf demanded her. My pack needed a Celine. And Celine, my broken little girl, needed a mother. I can't just abandon my life, she stammered, her voice trembling. My job, my apartment, everything. You have 30 days, I offered, a concession my wolf grudgingly allowed. 30 days to decide your fate. You will come to the Packlands. You will live among us. You will see what it means to be part of a pack. And then, you will make your choice. Her gaze met mine, and for a moment, the world outside us ceased to exist. The mate bond pulsed, a silent promise, a fierce demand. I saw the fear, yes, but also a flicker of curiosity, a spark of something that resonated with my own primal instincts. She was fighting it, but the fates had already decided. She was mine, and she would come.
The drive to the Northwood Packlands was a blur of disbelief and mounting anxiety. Silas Fenmore, the Alpha, had been infuriatingly silent, his presence beside me in the sleek black SUV a suffocating weight of raw power. He hadn't offered explanations, only commands. Pack your essentials. You have 30 days. My life, neatly compartmentalized and predictable, had been ripped apart at the seams. Now, as the SUV turned off the main highway onto a winding, unpaved road, the forest grew denser, the trees taller, older, their branches intertwining overhead to form a dark, cathedral-like canopy. The air grew colder, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth, but also something else. A faint, musky aroma that was both wild and strangely comforting. Then, through a break in the trees, I saw it. Not a single building, but a sprawling complex nestled deep within the woods. A mix of rustic log cabins and more modern, sturdy structures, all built with natural materials that blended seamlessly into the landscape. There were lights, the distant murmur of voices, and the unmistakable scent of wood smoke. It was a community, hidden from the human world. A pack. Silas pulled the SUV to a stop in front of a large, imposing log house that looked like the Alpha's residence. As he cut the engine, the silence that descended was profound, broken only by the rustling of leaves and the distant howl of what sounded suspiciously like a wolf. My stomach clenched. "Welcome to Northwood," Silas said, his voice a low rumble as he opened my door. I stepped out, my legs feeling strangely unsteady. The air here was different, charged with an energy I couldn't quite name. As I looked around, I noticed figures emerging from the surrounding buildings, their eyes, some golden, some brown, all fixed on me. They were assessing me, their expressions a mix of curiosity and suspicion. I felt like an exhibit in a zoo. "This is Lyra Thornvale," Silas announced, his voice carrying across the clearing, a clear declaration of ownership that made my hackles rise. "She will be staying with us." A tall, stern-faced woman with silver streaks in her dark hair stepped forward. "Alpha," she acknowledged, her gaze sharp as it swept over me. "I am Lena, the pack's beta. I will show her to her quarters." Silas nodded, then turned to me. "Celine is inside. She has been asking for you." My heart softened at the mention of the little girl. Amidst all the overwhelming strangeness, Celine was the one tangible connection, the reason I was here. I followed Lena into the Alpha's house, a surprisingly warm and inviting space despite its imposing exterior. The interior was rustic but comfortable, filled with the scent of home-cooked food and something else, something uniquely pack-like. A blend of different scents, different lives, all intertwined. Lena led me down a short hallway to a cozy room with a large window overlooking the forest. "This will be your room," she said, her voice clipped but not unkind. "Dinner is in an hour. The Alpha expects you to join us." Before I could respond, a small figure darted into the doorway. Celine. Her eyes, wide and dark, were fixed on me. She looked smaller, more fragile than I remembered, her face pale, her shoulders hunched. "Celine," I whispered, kneeling down to her level. "Are you okay?" She didn't speak, but her gaze, filled with a deep sadness, held mine. She looked lost, traumatized. My nurse instincts kicked in, overriding the fear and confusion. This child needed help. "Celine hasn't spoken much since her mother," Lena said, her voice softening slightly. "She was there. She saw it." My heart ached for the little girl. "I'm so sorry, Celine," I said, reaching out a hand. She flinched, then hesitated, before her small fingers tentatively clasped mine. Her hand was cold. "I'm a nurse," I told her gently. "I help people, and I want to help you." She looked up at me, her eyes searching, and for a fleeting moment I saw a flicker of hope. She squeezed my hand, a silent plea. Later, at dinner, the pack gathered around a massive wooden table, a boisterous, close-knit family. Silas sat at the head, his presence commanding, his golden eyes constantly sweeping the room, missing nothing. I sat beside him, feeling like an alien, acutely aware of every gaze, every whispered conversation. Celine sat opposite me, picking at her food. I tried to engage her, offering her a small smile, a gentle word. She didn't respond verbally, but her eyes, when they met mine, held a flicker of something that wasn't fear. It was trust. After dinner, Silas led me to a small, well-stocked infirmary within the house. "Lena told me you're a nurse," he said, his voice surprisingly soft. "The pack healer, Elias, is getting old. We could use your skills." My medical instincts, dormant since my arrival, flared to life. This was something I understood, something I was good at. "I can help," I said, my voice firm. "I can treat injuries, illnesses. But I'm not a werewolf healer." "You will learn," he stated, his gaze intense. "You have 30 days, Lyra, to decide if you can live here. To decide if you can be Celine's mother. To decide if you can be my mate." My gaze met his, and the mate bond, a silent, insistent hum, pulsed between us. It was terrifying, exhilarating. My human life, my independence, everything I knew was on one side. This wild, dangerous, compelling world, and the undeniable pull of this powerful man, was on the other. I looked at Celine, who had quietly followed us, her small hand now clutching the hem of my shirt. Her eyes, still filled with a deep sadness, held a silent plea. She needed me. And in that moment, my medical instincts, my human compassion, merged with something deeper, something that resonated with the primal pull of the mate bond. "Okay," I said, my voice steady, surprising even myself. "Okay, I'll stay. For Celine. And for the 30 days. Silas's eyes, golden and intense, held mine. A flicker of something akin to triumph, and something else, something softer, passed through them. He knew. He knew I was already more than just staying for 30 days. I was already beginning to belong. The first week in Northwood was a whirlwind of sensory overload and constant adjustment. The pack was a living, breathing entity, a complex web of relationships and unspoken rules. I learned quickly that every glance, every gesture, held meaning. And I, the human outsider, was under constant scrutiny. My room, though comfortable, felt like a gilded cage. But the infirmary, a surprisingly well-equipped space adjacent to the Alpha's residence, became my sanctuary. It was here that my skills, the ones that grounded me in my old life, found new purpose. Elias, the pack healer, was a gruff but kind elder wolf with a lifetime of knowledge about herbal remedies and shifter physiology. He watched me with a keen, assessing gaze as I worked, his initial skepticism slowly giving way to grudging respect. My first patient was a young male wolf named Finn, who'd sustained a nasty gash on his arm during a training exercise. His wolf form, I was learning, was incredibly resilient, but even shifters needed stitches. As I meticulously cleaned and sutured the wound, Finn winced, but his eyes, when they met mine, held a flicker of awe. "You're good," he mumbled, his voice rough. "Years of practice," I replied, a small smile touching my lips. It felt good to be useful, to be competent. Silas, it seemed, had made it a habit to observe me. He would often appear in the infirmary doorway, a silent, imposing presence, his golden eyes following my every move. He never spoke, never interfered, but his gaze was a constant, warm weight on my skin. It was unnerving, yet strangely comforting. It was the gaze of a protector, a guardian. And something more. I learned about werewolf physiology through hands-on experience. Their bones healed faster, their immune systems were robust, but they were still susceptible to infections, still felt pain. I treated sprains, fevers, even a nasty case of wolf flu that swept through the younger pups. I found myself explaining basic human anatomy to Elias, who, in turn, taught me about the subtle shifts in a wolf's scent that indicated illness, or the way their internal organs rearranged slightly during a full shift. One afternoon, I was tending to a pup with a high fever, gently sponging his forehead, when Silas entered the infirmary. He didn't just stand in the doorway this time. He walked over, his gaze fixed on the small, whimpering child. "He'll be all right," I murmured, sensing his concern. "Just a bad fever. I've given him something to bring it down." Silas nodded, his eyes softening almost imperceptibly as he looked at the pup. Then his gaze shifted to me, and the intensity was back, a familiar jolt. "You have a good touch, Lyra Thornvale." My cheeks flushed. "It's my job." "It's more than that," he countered, his voice low. "You care. The pack sees it." His words, simple as they were, resonated deeply. I was starting to care. Not just for Celine, but for the pack as a whole. They were a strange, wild, fiercely loyal community, and I, the human nurse, was slowly, tentatively becoming a part of it. Later that day, I was organizing the medical supplies when Silas returned, this time with Celine. The little girl still hadn't spoken, but she clung to Silas's hand, her eyes wide and watchful. "Celine has a cut on her hand," Silas said, his voice gentle as he guided her towards me. I knelt, taking Celine's small hand in mine. It was a shallow cut, easily cleaned and bandaged. As I worked, I hummed a soft tune, something my own mother used to sing to me. Celine watched me, her gaze unwavering. When I finished, she didn't pull her hand away immediately. Instead, her small fingers tightened around mine, a silent gesture of trust. Silas watched the interaction, a flicker of something unreadable in his golden eyes. He was a formidable alpha, a ruthless leader, but with Celine, he was simply a father, vulnerable and protective. And seeing that vulnerability, that deep, abiding love for his daughter, chipped away at the walls I had built around my heart. As I stood, our eyes met over Celine's head. The mate bond pulsed, a silent, insistent hum, stronger than ever. It was a magnetic pull, an undeniable force that drew me closer to him, despite my lingering fear, despite the vast differences between our worlds. He was the alpha, the wolf, the dangerous stranger. And I was the human nurse, caught in a destiny I never asked for. But as his gaze held mine, I knew, with a certainty that both thrilled and terrified me, that my 30 days were quickly becoming irrelevant. My place, it seemed, was here, with them.
The scent of her, honeysuckle and something uniquely human, filled my senses whenever she was near. Lyra, my mate. My wolf thrummed with a constant, low growl of satisfaction, a stark contrast to the restless grief that had plagued me for 3 years. 3 years. 3 years since the night Marcus, the alpha of the Blood Moon Pack, had ambushed us. 3 years since I'd watched Elena, my first mate, Celine's mother, fall. Her scent, blood and fear, still haunted my nightmares. I had hunted Marcus relentlessly, but he was cunning, elusive. He wanted something more than just territory. He wanted to break me. Now with Lyra here, my focus was split. My wolf demanded to claim her, to complete the bond, to ensure her safety. But my alpha mind was consumed with the threat of Marcus, a threat that felt closer, more imminent, with every passing day. My scouts reported increased activity on our borders, skirmishes with rogue wolves, signs of Marcus testing our defenses. I watched Lyra in the infirmary, her movements precise, her touch gentle. She was a natural healer, her human skills proving invaluable to the pack. The elders, initially wary, now spoke of her with respect. Even Lena, my stoic beta, had admitted Lyra was competent. High praise from Lena. But the mate bond was a constant distraction, a burning ache beneath my skin. Every time her eyes met mine, every time her scent drifted towards me, my wolf surged, demanding. I fought it, pushing it down. I couldn't afford to be distracted. Not now. Not with Marcus circling. I remembered the night Celine was attacked. It wasn't a random incident. It was a test. A lure. Marcus knew Celine was my weakness. He knew I would come for her. And he knew, somehow, that a human would interfere. He was playing a dangerous game, and Lyra, my fated mate, was now an unwitting pawn. One evening, I found Lyra in Celine's room, reading to her. Celine, who hadn't spoken a word since Elena's death, was listening intently, her small hand resting in Lyra's. Lyra's voice was soft, melodic, a stark contrast to the harsh realities of our world. As I watched, Celine stirred, her eyes still fixed on Lyra. And then a small, almost imperceptible sound escaped her lips. Story. My breath hitched. My heart, a muscle I thought had turned to stone, squeezed painfully. Story? I repeated, my voice rough with emotion. Celine looked at me, then back at Lyra, and a tiny, hesitant smile touched her lips. More story. Lyra's eyes, wide with surprise and joy, met mine. She spoke, she whispered, her voice filled with wonder. I nodded, unable to speak, a lump in my throat. 3 years. 3 years of silence. And Lyra, this human woman, had broken through. She had reached my daughter in a way I, her alpha father, could not. My wolf roared, not with triumph, but with a fierce, protective love that transcended the mate bond. She wasn't just my mate, she was Celine's hope. She was the light that had finally pierced the darkness that had enveloped my daughter. Later, I found myself in my study, staring at the map of our territory, the red markers indicating Marcus's movements. My mind was a maelstrom of conflicting emotions. The need to protect Lyra, to claim her, to keep her safe. And the burning desire for vengeance, for the justice Elena deserved. My beta, Lena, entered, her expression grim. Alpha, our scouts report a large group of rogues near the eastern border. They're not just passing through. They're probing. Marcus. He was making his move. Prepare the warriors, I commanded, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. Double the patrols. No one gets through. Lena nodded, her gaze assessing. And Lyra? She's been spending a lot of time with Celine. Celine is improving. She is, I confirmed, a flicker of warmth in my chest. Keep her safe, Lena. Keep them both safe. My internal struggle intensified. My wolf screamed to keep Lyra close, to mark her, to make her undeniably mine. But my alpha mind knew the danger she was in. Marcus would use anything, anyone, to get to me. And now, he had a new target. My mate. I clenched my fists, my knuckles white. I had to end this. For Elena. For Celine. For Lyra. I would protect them all. Even if it meant pushing Lyra away. Even if it meant denying the mate bond, for a little while longer. The thought was a bitter pill, but a necessary one. I would not lose another mate. Not to Marcus.
The tension in the pack house was palpable. Silas was more withdrawn than usual, his golden eyes constantly scanning, his jaw perpetually clenched. The warriors were restless, their sense sharp with anticipation. Something was coming. I could feel it in the air, a low hum of danger that vibrated through the very foundations of the pack. My 30 days were almost up, but the thought of leaving Northwood, of leaving Celine, of leaving Silas felt like a betrayal. Celine was speaking more now, her small voice a fragile melody in the house. She would seek me out, her hand finding mine, her eyes no longer filled with just sadness, but with a glimmer of hope. She was healing, and I was a part of it. Silas, however, was a different story. He was a whirlwind of conflicting signals. One moment, his gaze would burn with an intensity that made my skin tingle, the mate bond pulling me towards him with an irresistible force. The next, he would be distant, his expression unreadable, as if he were deliberately putting up walls. It was maddening. One evening, I found him in his study, hunched over a map, his brow furrowed in concentration. The air around him was thick with the scent of his wolf, power, frustration, and something else, something that spoke of deep-seated pain. Silas, I ventured, stepping into the room. He looked up, his golden eyes flashing, a flicker of surprise in their depths. Lyra. His voice was clipped, his tone dismissive. I'm busy. My patience, stretched thin by the constant emotional whiplash, snapped. Busy? You've been busy for days. What's going on? The pack is on edge. Celine is worried. And you're acting like a stranger. He slammed his fist on the table, the map rattling. This is pack business, Lyra. It doesn't concern you. Doesn't concern me? I retorted, my voice rising. I'm living here. I'm helping Celine. I'm part of this pack, whether you want to admit it or not. And if there's danger, I have a right to know. He stood, his towering height suddenly intimidating, his eyes blazing with a primal fury. You are a human, Lyra. You don't understand our world. You don't understand the threats we face. Then make me understand. I challenged, stepping closer, my own anger flaring. Or are you just going to keep me in the dark, like some fragile little human who can't handle the truth? His jaw tightened, a muscle twitching. You are fragile, Lyra. Compared to what's coming, you are incredibly fragile. Don't you dare patronize me. I spat, my voice trembling with a mixture of rage and hurt. I'm an ER nurse, Silas. I've seen things that would make your fur stand on end. I've dealt with life and death every single day. Don't tell me I'm fragile. He took a step towards me, his presence overwhelming, his scent filling my senses, intoxicating and dangerous. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh, I think I do, I countered, my voice dropping to a fierce whisper. I think you're scared. Scared of what's coming. Scared of letting anyone close again. His eyes, usually so controlled, widened almost imperceptibly. I had hit a nerve. Don't project your human emotions onto me, he growled, his voice low and dangerous. They're not just human emotions, Silas. I cried, my voice breaking. They're real. And you feel them too. I know you do. I feel it. This thing between us. I gestured wildly between us, the mate bond thrumming, screaming for release. It's real. And you're fighting it. Why? He stared at me, his golden eyes locked on mine, a storm of conflicting emotions raging within their depths. Anger, frustration, pain, and something else, something raw and vulnerable. He took another step, closing the distance between us. His hand, large and warm, cupped my cheek, his thumb stroking my skin. My breath hitched. The anger drained out of me, replaced by a dizzying rush of sensation. The mate bond flared, a wildfire igniting between us. "Because," he whispered, his voice rough, his gaze burning into mine, "I can't lose you too." And then his lips were on mine. It was a kiss born of frustration, of longing, of a desperate need that had been simmering beneath the surface for weeks. His mouth was hot, demanding, tasting of wildness and something uniquely Silas. My hands, without conscious thought, tangled in his thick hair, pulling him closer. His arms wrapped around my waist, crushing me against his hard, powerful body. The kiss deepened, becoming a desperate dance of give and take. His tongue traced the seam of my lips, asking for entry, and I parted them, inviting him in. His taste was intoxicating, a potent blend of power and vulnerability that sent shivers down my spine. My body hummed, alive with a sensation I had never known, a primal awakening that resonated with the deepest parts of my being. He broke the kiss, his forehead resting against mine, both of us panting, our breaths mingling. His golden eyes, dark with desire, stared into mine. "Lyra," he rasped, his voice thick with emotion. "My mate." The words, spoken with such raw intensity, sent a tremor through me. My mate. It was terrifying, exhilarating, and undeniably right.
Her words, sharp and true, pierced through the carefully constructed walls around my heart. Scared of letting anyone close again. She saw it. She saw the fear, the pain, the ghost of Elena that still haunted me. My wolf snarled, enraged at her audacity, yet also intrigued. She was fearless, this human. She challenged me, pushed me, saw through my alpha facade. And the mate bond, a constant, insistent hum, was now a roaring fire, demanding to be acknowledged. "Don't project your human emotions onto me," I growled, my voice low, dangerous. "They're not just human emotions, Silas," she cried, her voice breaking. "They're real. And you feel them too. I know you do. I feel it. This thing between us." She was right. Gods, she was so right. The mate bond was a living entity between us, a tangible force that pulled me towards her, demanded I claim her. My control, so meticulously maintained, was crumbling. I took a step, then another, closing the distance between us. Her scent, honeysuckle and something uniquely Lyra, filled my lungs, intoxicating me, driving my wolf wild. My hand, without conscious thought, reached out, cupping her cheek. Her skin was soft, warm beneath my thumb. "Because," I whispered, the words torn from my throat, raw and honest, "I can't lose you too." And then I kissed her. It was a desperate, hungry kiss, a release of weeks of suppressed longing, of fear, of the overwhelming pull of the mate bond. Her lips were soft, yielding, tasting of fire and something uniquely hers. My wolf roared in triumph, finally claiming what was ours. I pulled her closer, crushing her against my body, needing to feel every inch of her against me. Her hands tangled in my hair, pulling, demanding more. Her response was everything I had dreamed of, everything my wolf craved. She met my hunger with her own, her body trembling against mine, alive with a passion that mirrored my own. This was more than just physical attraction. It was the joining of souls, the recognition of destiny. When I finally broke the kiss, gasping for air, my forehead rested against hers, my eyes locked on her wide, dazed green ones. Her scent was all around me, a potent aphrodisiac. My wolf was purring, a deep, vibrating rumble in my chest. "Lyra," I rasped, my voice thick with emotion, the words a sacred vow. "My mate." The words hung in the air, a declaration, a promise. She was mine, and I would protect her, even from myself. Suddenly, a sharp, piercing howl ripped through the night, followed by the frantic barking of our perimeter guards. The sound was too close, too urgent. My head snapped up, my wolf instantly alert, every instinct screaming danger. "Marcus!" He was here. "Alpha!" Lena's voice, urgent and strained, echoed from outside. "They're at the eastern gate. A large force." My heart plummeted. Not now. Not when I had just. I looked at Lyra, her eyes still wide with the aftermath of our kiss, now clouded with confusion and fear. The danger was here. And she was in the heart of it. "Stay here," I commanded, my voice rough, already pulling away, my mind shifting from mate to alpha, from lover to warrior. "Don't move. Don't leave this room." I turned, my wolf already surging, demanding action, demanding blood. Marcus had chosen his moment. And he would pay.
The world exploded. The piercing howl, Lena's frantic shout, Silas's abrupt departure. It all happened in a terrifying blur. One moment, I was lost in the intoxicating haze of his kiss, the mate bond singing between us. The next, I was alone in his study, the scent of his wolf still clinging to the air, but replaced by the acrid smell of fear, and the distant sounds of battle. "Stay here," he had commanded. But my nurse instincts, honed by years of responding to emergencies, screamed defiance. "Stay here? While people were getting hurt? Not a chance." I rushed out of the study, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. The pack house, usually a hub of activity, was now a scene of organized chaos. Warriors, some already shifted, others in various stages of transformation, were rushing towards the eastern gate. The sounds of growls, snarls, and the sickening thud of bodies colliding echoed through the night. "Lyra, where are you going?" Lena's voice, sharp with alarm, cut through the din. She was directing a group of younger wolves, her face grim. "To the infirmary." I yelled back, already heading in that direction. "People are going to be hurt. I can help." Lena hesitated for a moment, then nodded, a flicker of approval in her eyes. "Be careful. Stay inside." I didn't need to be told twice. The infirmary was already a hive of activity. Elias, his face pale but determined, was preparing bandages and medicines. Two younger wolves, barely out of their pup stage, were helping him, their hands trembling. "Lyra, thank the goddess," Elias exclaimed, his voice strained. "We need you. They're coming in fast." The first casualties began to arrive, carried in by their packmates. A young female wolf with a deep gash on her flank, whimpering in pain. A male with a dislocated shoulder, his face contorted. My training kicked in, a familiar, comforting rhythm in the chaos. My hands moved automatically, assessing, cleaning, bandaging, setting bones. The sounds of the battle outside intensified. I heard the roar of Silas's wolf, a sound of pure, unadulterated fury that vibrated through the very floorboards. It was a sound of protection, of an alpha defending his own, and it filled me with a strange mix of terror and fierce pride. As I worked, I noticed the pack members watching me. Their initial suspicion had been replaced by something else: respect, gratitude. I was no longer just the human outsider. I was the healer, the one who eased their pain, the one who helped them fight another day. A large male wolf, his face streaked with blood, was brought in. He was unconscious, his breathing shallow. I quickly assessed him, my fingers flying over his chest. A collapsed lung. He needed immediate intervention. "Elias, I need a chest tube kit. Now!" I commanded, my voice sharp, cutting through the fear. Elias, startled by my sudden authority, scrambled to retrieve the equipment. The younger wolves watched, their eyes wide. I worked quickly, efficiently, my hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. I inserted the tube, the hiss of air escaping the lung a welcome sound. The wolf's breathing immediately stabilized. "He'll live," I announced, wiping sweat from my brow. A collective sigh of relief swept through the infirmary. Elias looked at me, his eyes filled with a newfound admiration. "You are truly gifted, Lyra Thornvale." The battle raged on for what felt like an eternity. The sounds of fighting slowly began to recede, replaced by the groans of the wounded and the triumphant howls of the Northwood warriors. We had held them off. Silas entered the infirmary, his clothes torn, his face smudged with dirt and blood, but his golden eyes blazing with victory. He scanned the room, his gaze lingering on each wounded pack member, then finally settling on me. His eyes, usually so guarded, held a raw emotion I hadn't seen before. Pride, admiration, and something else, something that spoke of a deep, undeniable connection. He saw me not just as his mate, not just as a human, but as a true partner. He walked towards me, his steps heavy, and stopped directly in front of me. He didn't speak, but his hand reached out, gently cupping my cheek, his thumb stroking my skin. His touch was a silent acknowledgement, a profound thank you. "You did well, Lyra," he murmured, his voice rough with exhaustion and emotion. "You saved them." My heart swelled. In that moment, surrounded by the wounded, by the aftermath of battle, I knew, with absolute certainty, that this was where I belonged. This wild, dangerous, fiercely loyal pack. And this powerful, protective alpha. My 30 days were long forgotten. My choice had been made.
The scent of Marcus's pack still clung to the air, a bitter reminder of the night's battle. We had driven them back, but it was a temporary victory. He was testing us, probing our weaknesses. And he had found one. Lyra. My wolf was restless, a constant growl in my chest. I had seen her in the infirmary, calm and efficient amidst the chaos, her hands steady as she saved lives. She was more than I had ever dared to hope for in a mate. Strong, brave, fiercely compassionate, and utterly, terrifyingly vulnerable. I stood at the edge of the forest, the first rays of dawn painting the sky in hues of bruised purple and fiery orange. My beta, Lena, stood beside me, her expression grim. They retreated, Alpha, she reported, her voice flat. But they left a message. She gestured to a tree where a crude symbol, a bloody crescent moon, had been carved into the bark. Marcus's mark. He's playing games, I growled, my fists clenching. He wants to draw me out. He knows about Lyra, Lena said, her voice low. One of our scouts overheard their chatter. They called her the human healer. They know she's here. They know she's important to you. My blood ran cold. He knew. Marcus knew about my mate. He had orchestrated Celine's hunt to draw me out, to expose my weakness. And now, he would use Lyra against me. The thought sent a surge of primal rage through me, a red haze that threatened to consume me. He wants to break you, Alpha, Lena continued, her gaze steady. He wants to take everything you care about. He won't, I vowed, my voice a low snarl. Not again. The memory of Elena, her scent fading, her lifeblood staining my fur, flashed before my eyes. I had failed her. I would not fail Lyra. I returned to the pack house, my mind racing, formulating a plan. I had to protect Lyra, even if it meant pushing her away, even if it meant breaking my own heart. I found her in the infirmary, tending to the last of the wounded. Her hair was disheveled, her face smudged, but her eyes, when they met mine, were bright with a fierce determination. Silas, she said, a soft smile touching her lips. Everyone's stable. We held them off. I walked towards her, my heart aching with a love so profound it was almost painful. She was so vibrant, so full of life. And I was about to shatter her. Lyra, I began, my voice rough, forcing the words out. You need to leave. Her smile faltered. Her eyes widened, confusion clouding their green depths. Leave? What are you talking about? After everything that happened tonight? I belong here, Silas. I helped. I can help more. No, I said, my voice hardening, forcing myself to sound cold, distant. You don't belong here. This is not your world. You are a human. You are vulnerable. Her jaw tightened. I am not vulnerable. I just proved that. You were lucky, I countered, my voice flat. Marcus knows about you. He will come for you. He will use you to get to me. I cannot risk that. So what? She challenged, her voice rising, hurt flashing in her eyes. You're just going to send me away? After everything? It's for your own safety, I insisted, my voice devoid of emotion, though my wolf was howling in protest. You will return to your human life. You will forget about us. About me. Her eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back, her chin trembling. Forget about you? Forget about Celine? You think I can just turn off what I feel? What we feel? She gestured between us, the mate bond screaming, a tangible force that mocked my words. You must, I said, my voice barely a whisper, my heart tearing in two. I cannot protect you here. Not from him. Not from what's coming. You're lying, she whispered, her voice broken. You're pushing me away. You're scared. I am the Alpha, I growled, forcing the words out, forcing myself to be the cold, unfeeling leader she thought I was. My decisions are for the good of the pack, and your presence here is a liability. Her face crumpled, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. A liability, she repeated, her voice barely audible. Is that all I am to you? I wanted to pull her into my arms, to tell her she was everything, to tell her I loved her more than life itself. But I couldn't. Not now. Not when Marcus was circling. Yes, I said, the lie a bitter taste in my mouth. Now go. Lena will arrange your transport. I turned away, unable to look at her, unable to bear the pain in her eyes. My wolf was howling, a mournful sound of despair. I was sacrificing my mate, my happiness, for her safety. It was the hardest decision I had ever made. But it was the only way. Marcus would come for her, and I would not let him win.
The words, a liability, echoed in my ears, a cruel, stinging blow. Silas's face, usually so expressive in its intensity, was a mask of cold indifference. He had pushed me away brutally, unequivocally. The mate bond, which had sung so brightly just hours before, now felt like a raw, bleeding wound. Lena, her face grim, had indeed arranged my transport. A pack vehicle, driven by a silent, stoic warrior, was waiting to take me back to the human world. My human world. It felt alien now, a distant memory. I walked towards the vehicle, my shoulders slumped, my heart heavy. Celine, her small face pale and tear-streaked, ran out of the house, her arms outstretched. Lyra, don't go, she cried, her voice a desperate plea. I knelt, pulling her into a tight hug, tears blurring my vision. I have to, sweetie, I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. But I'll never forget you. Never. Silas stood in the doorway of the pack house, a dark, imposing silhouette against the rising sun. He watched us, his expression unreadable. I searched his golden eyes for any sign of regret, any flicker of the connection we had shared. Nothing. Just cold, hard resolve. "Goodbye, Celine," I choked out, forcing myself to pull away. I stood, my gaze meeting Silas's one last time. He said nothing, his silence a final, crushing blow. I climbed into the vehicle, my body numb. The warrior started the engine, and we began to move slowly at first, then picking up speed, leaving the pack house, leaving Silas, leaving Celine behind. The forest, once a place of wonder and mystery, now felt like a dark, suffocating tunnel. I stared out the window, tears streaming silently down my face, blurring the passing trees. How could he? How could he just discard me? Suddenly, the vehicle swerved violently. The warrior cursed, wrestling with the steering wheel. A loud thud, then another shook the car. We had hit something. Or something had hit us. What was that? I gasped, bracing myself as the vehicle skidded to a halt. "Ambush!" the warrior snarled, his hand already reaching for a weapon. Before he could react, the doors were ripped open. Large, shadowy figures, their eyes glowing with malevolent intent, swarmed the vehicle. They were wolves, but not like the Northwood pack. Their fur was matted, their movements jerky, their growls laced with a feral madness. Rogues. Marcus's rogues. The warrior fought bravely, shifting into his wolf form, a blur of gray fur and snapping teeth. But he was outnumbered, overwhelmed. I watched in horror as they dragged him from the vehicle, tearing at him with savage ferocity. Then, a pair of glowing red eyes fixed on me. A massive, scarred wolf, its fur a dirty brown, lunged into the vehicle. Its breath was hot and foul, its fangs bared in a terrifying snarl. I scrambled back, pressing myself against the seat, my heart hammering against my ribs. The human healer, a guttural voice rumbled, too deep, too human for a wolf. It was the scarred wolf, its eyes burning with a chilling intelligence. "Marcus wants you." Before I could react, a sharp blow to the head sent stars exploding behind my eyes. Darkness swallowed me whole. When I came to, my head throbbed a dull, persistent ache. I was in a dark, damp space, the air thick with the smell of earth and something metallic, blood. My hands were bound behind my back, and a rough gag was tied around my mouth. I tried to move, but my muscles screamed in protest. I was in a cage. A crude makeshift cage, fashioned from thick branches and rope. Around me, I could hear whimpers, groans. Other prisoners. My eyes adjusted to the gloom. I saw them then. Other humans, some injured, some terrified, huddled in similar cages. And then I saw a familiar face. A young female wolf from the Northwood pack, one of the pups I had treated in the infirmary, her face pale with fear, her eyes wide and tear-filled. She was in a cage too. "Lyra," she whimpered, her voice barely audible. They took us. They want to hurt Alpha Silas." My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about me. This was a trap. A cruel, elaborate trap designed to lure Silas. And I, the liability, was the bait. A wave of despair washed over me. He had sent me away to protect me, and instead, he had delivered me straight into Marcus's hands. He wouldn't come for me. Why would he? I was just a liability. He had made that clear. But then, a flicker of defiance ignited within me. No, I wouldn't give up. I was a nurse. I was a survivor. And I would not let Marcus win. I looked at the other prisoners, their faces etched with fear. They needed help. They needed hope. My medical knowledge, my training, was my weapon. I might be captured, but I wasn't helpless. I would find a way. I would use every ounce of my strength, every bit of my knowledge to survive. And if Silas wouldn't come for me, then I would save myself. And them.
The scent of her, honeysuckle and fear, hit me like a physical blow. It was faint, almost imperceptible, carried on the wind, but my wolf recognized it instantly. Lyra. She was alive, and she was in danger. My heart, which I thought had turned to stone, hammered against my ribs. My lie, my cruel words, had been for nothing. Marcus had taken her. He had used my own attempt to protect her against me. "Alpha!" Lena's voice was urgent, pulling me from my despair. "We found the ambush site. Our warrior, he's gone. And Lyra's scent, it leads this way." She pointed deeper into the forest, towards the forbidden territory of the Blood Moon pack. Rage, cold and absolute, consumed me. Marcus. He would pay. He would pay for Elena. He would pay for Celine. And he would pay for Lyra. "Gather the warriors," I commanded, my voice a low snarl. "Every able-bodied wolf. We move now." The pack responded instantly, their own anger mirroring mine. They knew what Marcus had done. They knew what he was capable of. And they knew I would not rest until Lyra was safe. We moved through the forest like shadows, a silent, deadly force. My wolf was a raging inferno, demanding blood, demanding vengeance. But my alpha mind was clear, focused. I would not make a mistake. Not this time. We found their camp at dawn, nestled in a hidden valley, a crude, fortified stronghold. The stench of unwashed wolves, of fear, and of something else, something metallic and sickening, hung heavy in the air. I saw the cages then, and in one of them, huddled and pale, but alive, was Lyra. My mate. My heart swelled with a fierce, protective love that threatened to overwhelm me. "Marcus!" I roared, my voice echoing through the valley, a challenge that vibrated with the power of my alpha command. "Show yourself!" The scarred wolf, the one I recognized as Marcus, emerged from a central tent, his eyes gleaming with malevolent triumph. He was larger than I remembered, his fur matted with old blood, his presence radiating a dark, twisted power. "Silas Fenmore," he sneered, his voice a low growl. "You came, just as I knew you would, for your little human." He gestured towards Lyra's cage, a cruel smile twisting his lips. "She's quite resilient. A shame I'll have to break her." My wolf snarled, a deep, guttural sound that promised death. "Release her, Marcus, and your prisoners, or I will tear you limb from limb." "Oh, I don't think so," Marcus chuckled, a chilling sound. "You see, I have a proposition. A challenge. A ritual combat. Alpha against alpha. If you win, your human and your prisoners go free. If I win, I take your pack, and your human becomes my Selene." My blood ran cold. He wanted my pack. He wanted Lyra. He wanted everything. Agreed. I snarled, my wolf already surging forward, ready to tear him apart.
The roar that ripped through the valley was unmistakable. Silas. He had come. My heart leaped, a surge of hope and terror warring within me. He hadn't abandoned me. He had come. I watched, my breath caught in my throat, as he confronted Marcus. The air crackled with their power, two alpha wolves, two forces of nature about to collide. "Alpha against alpha," Marcus sneered, his voice dripping with malice. "If you win, your human and your prisoners go free. If I win, I take your pack, and your human becomes my Selene." My blood ran cold. No, he couldn't. He wouldn't. "Agreed," Silas snarled, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. My mind raced. I had to do something. I couldn't just sit here, helpless. I looked at the other prisoners, their faces pale with fear. The young Northwood pup, her eyes wide with terror. "Listen to me," I whispered, my voice hoarse but firm. "When they start fighting, it will be chaos. That's our chance. We need to get out of these cages." I looked at the crude lock on my cage. It was a simple latch, but secured with a thick rope. My hands were still bound, but I could feel a small, sharp splinter of wood on the floor of the cage. "I need something sharp," I whispered to the young pup. "Can you reach it?" She nodded, her small fingers trembling as she reached through the bars, retrieving the splinter. I guided her hand, showing her how to use it to saw at the rope binding my wrists. It was slow, agonizing work, but with each frayed strand, hope surged. The ground trembled as Silas and Marcus shifted, their forms growing, their muscles rippling. Two massive wolves, one black, one scarred brown, faced each other, their eyes blazing with primal fury. The fight began, a blur of teeth and claws, of snarls and roars that shook the very earth. It was brutal, savage, a dance of death. "Faster," I urged the pup, my voice strained. Almost there. Finally, with a snap, the rope gave way. My hands were free. I quickly untied the gag, then worked on the latch of my cage. It was stiff, but with a grunt of effort, it sprang open. "Okay," I whispered, my voice firm. "Everyone listen. When I say go, we run. Head for the forest. Don't look back." I quickly moved to the other cages, working on the latches, my fingers flying. The battle between Silas and Marcus raged, a distraction that bought us precious seconds. Silas was fighting with a ferocity I had never seen, his black fur a blur against Marcus's brown. But Marcus was cunning, ruthless, and he fought dirty, aiming for weak points, for old wounds. Silas was tiring. My heart clenched. He was fighting for us. For me. "Now!" I yelled, as Marcus landed a brutal blow that sent Silas sprawling. The prisoners, spurred by my command, scrambled out of their cages, a terrified mass of humanity and young wolves. We ran, a desperate dash for the cover of the trees. But Marcus saw us. He let out a triumphant snarl, momentarily distracted from Silas. "Get them!" he roared to his rogues. The rogues, who had been watching the Alpha fight, turned their attention to us, their eyes gleaming with hunger. "Go!" I screamed at the others, pushing the young pup ahead of me. "I'll distract them." I turned, facing the charging rogues, my mind racing. I was a nurse. I knew how to assess, how to react. I saw a pile of burning embers from a campfire. With a desperate surge of adrenaline, I grabbed a burning branch, swinging it wildly. The rogues, startled by the sudden fire, hesitated. It bought us precious seconds. Then a massive rogue lunged at me. I braced myself, but before it could reach me, a blur of black fur slammed into it, sending it sprawling. Silas. He stood over me, his golden eyes blazing, his fur bristling. He was injured, bleeding, but his presence was a shield, a promise of protection. "Run, Lyra," he snarled, his voice rough. "Get to safety." "No," I cried, my gaze meeting his. "Not without you. I'm not leaving you." The mate bond flared, a powerful surge of energy that flowed between us, a silent declaration of loyalty, of love. I reached out, my hand finding his fur, pressing against his powerful flank. And in that moment, something shifted. A surge of strength, of renewed power, seemed to flow into him from me. His eyes, which had been clouded with exhaustion, cleared, blazing with a fierce, renewed determination. He turned, facing Marcus, who was now charging towards us, enraged. Silas met him head-on, a force of nature, his movements fluid, powerful. He fought with a new ferocity, a primal strength that seemed to draw from the very bond between us. The battle was short, brutal. Silas, fueled by the mate bond, by my presence, by his love for Celine, fought with an unstoppable power. He dodged Marcus's attacks, then moved in, a blur of black fur and snapping teeth. He lunged, his jaws closing around Marcus's throat, a final, decisive bite. Marcus thrashed, his eyes wide with shock and pain, then went limp. The Alpha of the Blood Moon Pack was dead. A collective gasp, then a stunned silence, fell over the valley. The rogues, leaderless, whimpered, their eyes darting nervously. Silas released Marcus's body, his chest heaving, his fur matted with blood. He turned, his golden eyes finding mine. He shifted slowly, painfully, back into his human form, his body covered in cuts and bruises, but his gaze unwavering. He walked towards me, his steps heavy, and pulled me into his arms, crushing me against his chest. His scent, wild and musky, filled my senses, a comforting balm to my terrified soul. "My mate," he whispered, his voice rough with emotion, his lips pressing against my hair. "My Lyra, I thought I had lost you." "You idiot," I sobbed, clinging to him, tears streaming down my face. "You absolute idiot. I love you." He pulled back, his golden eyes blazing with a fierce, triumphant love. "I love you too, Lyra Thornvale. More than words can say." The mate bond, finally gloriously completed. The world shifted, settling into place. I was home. The sun, high in the sky, cast long, golden shadows across the clearing. The air was filled with the scent of pine, of damp earth, and of something else, a profound sense of peace. Marcus's rogues had been rounded up. Some offered a chance to join the Northwood Pack under strict conditions, others exiled. Justice had been served. Elena's death had been avenged. Silas, his wounds healing with astonishing speed, stood beside me, his hand warm and strong in mine. Celine, her small hand clutching my other, looked up at me, her eyes bright, a genuine smile gracing her lips. She had spoken more in the last 24 hours than she had in 3 years. She was healing. We all were. Today was the mating ceremony. Not just a formality, but a sacred ritual, a public declaration of our bond, our commitment to each other, and to the pack. The entire Northwood Pack was gathered, their faces filled with joy and acceptance. Lena, her stern features softened by a rare smile, stood before us, officiating the ceremony. "Silas Fenmore, Alpha of the Northwood Pack, do you take Lyra Thornvale as your fated mate, your Celine, to cherish and protect in all forms for all time?" "I do," Silas rumbled, his golden eyes locked on mine, filled with a love so profound it took my breath away. "Lyra Thornvale," Lena continued, her gaze warm, "do you take Silas Fenmore as your fated mate, your Alpha, to stand by him, to love and support him in all forms for all time?" "I do," I said, my voice clear and strong, my heart overflowing. Silas pulled me closer, his lips finding mine in a tender, possessive kiss. The mate bond flared, a brilliant, blinding light that encompassed us both, solidifying our connection, making us one. The pack howled, a joyous chorus that echoed through the forest, celebrating our union. From reluctant human nurse to Celine Alpha. My journey had been improbable, terrifying, and utterly transformative. I had found a love I never knew existed, a family I never knew I needed, and a purpose that resonated with every fiber of my being. Life in Northwood was a constant adventure. I continued to work in the infirmary, my medical skills invaluable to the pack. Elias became my mentor, teaching me the ancient ways of shifter healing, blending modern medicine with traditional remedies. I learned about pack politics, about the delicate balance of power, about the fierce loyalty that bound them all together. Celine blossomed under my care. She was no longer the silent, traumatized child. She laughed, she played, she spoke freely, her small voice a constant source of joy. She called me Mama Lyra, a title that filled my heart with a warmth I had never known. She was my daughter, not by blood, but by bond, by love. Silas and I, our bond deepening with each passing day, navigated the complexities of our new life together. He was still the powerful, protective alpha, but with me he was also tender, vulnerable, and fiercely devoted. Our chemistry, explosive from the start, only intensified, our nights filled with a passion that was both primal and deeply emotional. Months later, a new joy entered our lives. I stood beside Silas, his arm wrapped around my waist, my hand resting protectively over my slightly swollen belly. The pack had gathered, their faces alight with excitement. "We have an announcement," Silas rumbled, his voice filled with pride. "Lyra is pregnant." A cheer erupted, followed by a chorus of joyous howls. Celine, her eyes wide with wonder, hugged my legs. "A baby brother or sister?" she whispered, her face beaming. I smiled, pulling her closer. "Yes, sweetie. A new member of our pack." My life, once mundane and predictable, was now filled with the wild, untamed beauty of the werewolf world. I had found my destiny, not in the sterile confines of an emergency room, but in the heart of a powerful pack, beside a fierce alpha, and with a daughter who had healed my own wounded soul. As I looked out at my new family, at the towering trees that surrounded our home, at the promise of a future filled with love, laughter, and the occasional thrilling chase, I knew with absolute certainty that I was exactly where I was meant to be. From a woman who rescued a girl from wolves, I had become Celine Alpha, the mate of the most powerful alpha in North America, and the mother of his child. My new beginning was just that, a beginning, and it was perfect.